Today I am here with Mr. DV Giri, the Secretary General of IWTMA. Good morning, sir. Thank you for talking to
Thank you so much for coming.
Can you please tell us a little bit about IWTMA and your role in the organization?
Actually, the name of the organization is wrong. It's called the Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturers Association. I guess the name was given when it was formed way back in 95 or 96. But the actual role of the organization, it is the umbrella body and the one-stop shop as a turnkey solution provider for all those who wanted to get into wind energy investments. So from 1997 to 2012, in this 15 years, and when wind energy program started in 1987, now we are celebrating 25 years of wind energy. If 17,000 megawatts have been installed in the country, and almost all 95-97% from the private sector, I would say it is an initiative and it was market driven by IWTMA. So we are just not manufacturers. We help the investor right from selection of land to tying up the finance, getting all the government permissions, installing the project when it was under accelerated depreciation to meet the deadlines in September and in March, and thereafter continue the O&M for the next 20 years. So therefore, it was always that he invested, we performed, and it is a continuing relationship for very many years. And the wind fraternity has been held together thanks to the IWTMA. Plus, the main role of IWTMA has been that it is today recognized by all the state utilities, regulatory commissions, CWAT, MNRE, MOAF, MOEF. We are called for budgetary consultation as a pre-budget memorandum. So having done such beautiful things, I would say that it somehow doesn't fit the word manufacturers, but we are actually an umbrella body, which takes me to the next level, that today we find that we need to bring in other stakeholders as well. So we have now seeded a concept of making IWTMA into an organization called IWA, which is the Indian Wind Alliance, where you would get stakeholders from the component manufacturers, the developers, the IPPs, the financial community, research organizations, governmental bodies, quasi-government, so that all come together and we speak in just one voice. If we want to do leapfrogging at 3,000 megawatts today, what we have done last year, which is third in the world, and if we want to go for a vision of 5,000 megawatts plus, and with a capacity of over 10,000 megawatts today, which the manufacturers can actually produce and install, I think the role of IWTMA, I would say, I'm rather proud of it.
You have been extensively involved in the wind industry for close to 2 decades as a manufacturer, then as a chairman of the IWTMA, and now as the Secretary General of the association.
I guess in the last 2 decades, the way in which this industry has grown, apart from the demonstration projects that were put up through DANIDA, and then the absolute proactive policies of TNEB, then TNEB and now TANGEDCO and so on, and MNRE, which was earlier MNES, which later became MNRE, they allowed private sector investment into wind energy. And why should a private sector come in? The private sector came in because they were able to give them a fiscal incentive of accelerated depreciation. At that time it was 100%, the corporate taxes were almost 50%, so there was a gold rush to put up wind energy equipments. At that time there was no manufacturing community, there were more agents in India. We had something like about 18 to 20 agents selling turbines. So when there was a gold rush of people wanting to put wind turbines to enjoy tax hedging and profit making companies, I think it's good for the economy, but unfortunately it was the fiscal incentive that drove it. It was not actually energy driven. So there was an aberration. The PLFs were horrible. Therefore in the mid 90s, MNES came with guidelines which were very, very proactive. Number one, to say that the turbines would be imported, if at all, they would be new. all the turbines should have their own type certification. There should be a manufacturing base in India with ISO certification, and they should be able to demonstrate O&M facilities, and the manufacturers would get some facilities in importing certain very critical components under, I would say, what they call as a duty exemption, but it's actually lesser duty. And also for the customer, apart from the accelerated depreciation, he also got the ATIA benefit, and this is how the market started growing. So the best growth we had was in 94, 95, where we came up to about 350 megawatts in a single year, and the market was slowly growing till we hit the Asian crisis in 1999, and I would say it was a black year for the country, where the entire industry performed only 57 megawatts. So it was purely the accelerated depreciation which was driving the market, and PLFs were okay, but the technology was not so good. And thereafter, the startup of 2000, when Energy Micon introduced the first 750 kilowatt machine, one saw bigger machines coming to the picture. And thereafter, we had a company like Enercon, which had a small turbine, a 230 kilowatt turbine, which was a gearless turbine. It's a direct drive machine, which certainly performed better than the gear driven machines. And thereafter, government started looking at accelerated depreciation as a disincentive. As a project for 4,000 megawatts, same with the same 50 paisa, as well as a cap of 62.5 lakhs per megawatt. At the end of the 11th plan period, out of 4,000 megawatts, we have done only about 1,500 megawatts renewable energy certificate schemes, where you could trade it in a number of ways, inclusive of selling it to the utility at the ABPC price, and then you could have the certificates traded through the exchange with a floor price and a forbearance price. So these three, accelerated depreciation, GBI, and REC markets, sort of were running the show. But then today, having done 3,000 megawatts in 2011-12, and with a shift from retail markets to an IPP market, we are today at crossroads.
And you often speak in international conferences and seminars on role of wind in India. How does GVEC and other international organizations and stakeholders view the Indian market?
Well, GVEC is a very large international body where it has membership over 50-60 countries, and there are wonderful examples of having, like say, GVEC did the entire blueprint for China to what it is today. They drove the system of telling the Chinese government that that China should insist on foreign players to set up shop in China, to manufacture at least 70% of the components in China, by which they have a huge manufacturing base. It provided employment. They were able to learn the technology. And today, if China where it is today, I would think a lot is due to GVEC. So GVEC is a wonderful body encompassing all the nations together. And I think the prime focus of GVEC, whether they are working on the sidelines of Rio 20 or the COP15, the accent is on how do we minimize the use of fossil fuels? How do we bring in an energy mix by which you increase renewable energy and decrease fossil fuels? And also the accent is on climate change and arresting global warming.
So how is their view on the Indian market?
As far as the Indian market is concerned, well, it's rather evident that with the kind of shrinking of the European market, what Europe is today, whether it is Spain or Denmark or other countries, or the possible threat of US coming to almost a grinding halt in 2013, the two major markets are China as well as India. And you are aware, and all of us know, that the entire European technology is what it is in India today. So I would say for GVEC, who's one of the organizers for our Wind Power India conference and exhibition coming up in November. For GVAC, India is a big, prime, growing market apart from the Latin American countries and emerging African countries. So for GVAC, India is a big focus.
A number of global manufacturers have also established large manufacturing facilities in India over the last decade. What do you see as the biggest reason for this, and what do you see the manufacturing trend going forward?
Well, as you know, the turbine components are all oversized components. They're heavy components. You won't believe that there were times when gearboxes and blades were flown from Denmark. India, I'm proud to say, is a wonderful destination both by engineering skills, relatively lower wage structure, and a lot of trained, skilled personnel. Therefore, if you're going to get cost goals compared to the European standards, it is absolutely a must that you have to indigenize. So the major shift has been from imports to indigenization and local production, and also to evolve technologies in a manner that it would suit the Indian conditions. Earlier, it was a Danish machine, a Dutch machine, a German machine, which were put in India. Today, I think we are getting to made in India and made for India, and I'm sure the European companies are, either it is a wholly owned subsidiary or a joint venture in the country, I'm sure a lot more manufacturers would come and set up shop in India and take advantage. And also, as it is seen today, some of the manufacturers from MNC companies, whether it is a Gamesa or a Vestas, who have set up shop here, some of the components are being exported from here. So India could well become a good engineering research hub, plus the fact that having invested in India, that it's time we looked at incentivizing local production. Because there should be an incentive for localizing, because the turbines are installed in India.
You also touched upon the concept of not just made in India but made for India. Could you very briefly elaborate what you meant by saying made for India?
You see, unlike Europe, where you are having different climate conditions and then you have dust-free conditions, in India we are very, very different. You could have the desert winds of Rajasthan to high rains in Kerala to temperatures going beyond 45, 50 degrees in Gujarat or Rajasthan. So, and also, while we say that we have a good grid network, but our grid is not stable either. So we need to have a lot of protective mechanisms, electrical mechanisms and surge arresters and so on, to ensure that we do dance and we do take care of the fluctuations in the grid. If this is not there, then you could have a lot of blackouts and you could have a lot of downtime.
Shift from smaller individual customers now to larger captive and IPP customers. How do you see the landscape evolving both upstream and downstream over the next 3 years?
Yes, it is a paradigm shift from retail to the larger investment IPPs. I think before we go to the upstream and downstream, I think the major requirement today is how do you upscale installing one turbine to going for megawatt size turbines. That's number one. Number two, after you install the turbine, how are you going to ensure that the O&M which you are performing, because the IPP, his bread and butter lies in is getting the maximum PLF. So I think these are two major areas of concern which I think we as manufacturing community will have to look at. How do we upscale large wind farms, the host of events that will go into land and grid and etc., and also look at supply chain management to ensure things are performed on time, and how do you manage the O&M. As far as the challenges which we will have, yes, the size of the market has gone up from megawatt to sub-megawatt to megawatt, so that would be a challenge by itself, and O&M will be a big challenge.
What are the most critical elements that are required for the large scale up in the wind industry that is being planned over the next 5 years?
You are absolutely right. I think you have touched upon standards. I'm happy that in India, though there has been a cry from the manufacturers as well as from other stakeholders, we follow the best standards in terms of IEC or GL standards. Like for instance, we follow IEC edition 3, whereas many countries in the world follow edition 2. Between edition 2 to edition 3, safety and environment are the hallmarks. So we are ensuring that when you install a turbine, apart from its producing energy, it does not harm the environment of the people or its surroundings. That's number one. Number two, in terms of technology is concerned, we are still dependent on technology from outside the country, and therefore larger technologies, better engineering will have to be the focus, and more importantly, I think it is supply chain. If supply chain today, if you take whether it is a gearbox or making a generator or making towers, earlier we were dependent on just one company called LM. It's a Danish company, worldwide company in India, which is still making blades in India, but quite a few of our manufacturers have started making their own blades. So I'm sure blade is going to be a major issue in the future. Plus, the blade profile, the length of the blade, the kind of blades we are going to use, as we are moving away from the focus large wind regimes to lower and middle regimes, we need to evolve ourselves to harness the best. So blade technology and blade production would be a challenge. As far as collaborations are concerned, well, it's a mixed game. You are certainly going to have the Indian players bringing in joint ventures, and joint ventures have succeeded in India. I think it's a wonderful combination. I'm sure it's going to go a long way.
As the Indian wind energy market leads the growth globally, what kind of platform does Wind Power India 2012 provide to various stakeholders?
Well, the entire wind fraternity is a very, very small family. We have handful of people. When you work in the industry, you almost come to know everybody within 3-4 years. So the important thing is, when you are showcasing a large exhibition and when you are going to have a conference to go alongside, you are bringing in all the stakeholders together. The biggest focus is going to be on networking. It brings in people all over the world to sit together and say, how are we going to handle the growing requirements of the world towards climate change and global warming. The other is the evolving technologies as to how we can put it together. Plus, a confidence building exercise between the component manufacturers, the manufacturers of turbines, the investors, the PEs and the IPPs to share common platforms, to bring in product launches so that people can understand what more can be done without compromising safety standards, protecting the environment, getting the government bureaucrats and the powers that may be to understand that the wind energy program is just not another business. I would say if Dr. Swaminathan got in the green revolution, number one, I think producing green power, we are in green revolution 2. So I do strongly believe that if all of us in India, so I do believe that this particular conference will address those issues to bring in, whether it is an IT or a technology or an investment community, to come together. And India as a growing economy and one of the largest democracy and the kind of power needs we have, I'm sure this is going to benefit all stakeholders, and it is going to be a good confidence building sounding board to go forward and address our power requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Giri. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure.
thank you, Vineet. Thank you very much. Thank you.